ADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 o'clock in Lagos. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and worldwide on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink, and here are the top stories. Reactions trail public policy framework launch of Senegal 2050.
The other area I would have to insist on is the absence of any reference to education. How can you change things? How can you achieve sovereignty and development without giving to this colonial education system a new orientation?
Laurent Gbagbo's PPACI party insists to get him on the electoral list for the 2025 elections. Ghana's parliament resumes as minority MPs make major constitutional move to become majority MPs.
And when it reconvenes, I am very certain that Parliament and Ghana will go through a major constitutional test. And that constitutional test is that the NDC minority must become the majority from Wednesday next week.
And Liberia's President Boakai presents situation of food shortages despite federal assault to World Food Forum. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Imo Edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining us. Let's begin in Senegal as reactions continue to trail the launch of the strategic public policy framework Senegal 2050 by President Bassirou Diomaye Faye on Monday, which is coming 6 months after his swearing in. The new framework, which is the result of collective reflection by Senegalese experts, outlines an ambitious national transformation agenda for the next 25 years. Speaking to WDR, Professor Guigui Dieng, a political watcher and an educationist, noted among the four-pillar anchors of the policy the absence of a policy to reform the education sector. According to Professor Dieng, there is no much difference between the Senegal 2050 plan and the plan Senegal emergent of former President Macky Sall.
For a country must be set for a long period of time. In this case, is 25 years to achieve sovereignty, to achieve justice, and to achieve prosperity. Of course, what the people who elected is immediate resolution of the problems, survival problems, economic problems, job problems. Of course, this what is expected by the population, immediate resolution of their problems. But it is not possible to establish a program and not set it for a longer period of time than 1 year or 2 months or 2 years. You want to achieve a sovereignty, that's to say vis-a-vis the rest of the world, vis-a-vis the IMF, the World Bank, and the other superpowers, because the word sovereignty is strong. And you want to achieve this, and you want to develop your economy, you want to develop your industry, seeking now to transform your raw materials in Senegal. The problem now is, where are you going to take the funding from? Where are you going to take the money? If it is still from the World Bank or for the IMF, I don't see how the sovereignty can be achieved. So it's a four-axis program, and I don't see really any difference between what is stated in these four areas and what has already been developed in the programs presented by the outgoing government. All the areas that are here have already been developed by the former government. The other area I would really have to insist on is the absence of any reference to education. How can you change things? How can you achieve sovereignty and development without giving to this colonial education system a new orientation?
Professor Guigui Dieng is a political enthusiast and an educationist. Well, we do have more reactions on our guest interview later in the news. The spokesperson for the African People's Party of Côte d'Ivoire, PPACI, Dr. Kenneth Katinan, has reacted to the statements of the President of the Independent Electoral Commission, CEI, Ibrahim Coulibaly Kubet, concerning the removal of former President Laurent Gbagbo from the electoral list. It was during the exchange meeting called the PPACI platform. The president of the CEI, speaking to MPs, had stated that former President Gbagbo could only be on the electoral list when he enjoys his civil and political rights. These comments were, however, quickly rejected by the opposition party. Details in Abidjan with Alvin Ade and voiced by Christopher Ticho.
The African People's Party of Ivory Coast has rejected en bloc the declarations of the President of the Electoral Commission on the non-registration of former President Laurent Gbagbo on the electoral list. The PPACI announced that it will refer the matter to the Constitutional Council to have Laurent Gbagbo reinstated on the electoral list. Opponents say they remain determined to support the former president's candidacy for the 2025 presidential election despite his removal from the electoral list, making him ineligible. Kone Katinan is the spokesperson for PPACI.
We will submit the candidacy, not Laurent Gbagbo, who says that we are the Constitutional Council and it is the Constitutional Council that will decide. And we are forming it here now and from all sides that the candidate of the PPACI is called Laurent Gbagbo. We are not taking chances and we intend to use all legal means to enforce this decision because we cannot buy excuses.
In addition to the legal battle, the PPACI is also waging a political fight for the re-registration of its leader on the electoral list. The party sent a letter to President Alassane Ouattara a few years ago to relaunch the political dialogue interrupted last March. Among the points to be discussed is the re-registration of Laurent Gbagbo on the electoral list too. It is said move towards inclusive and peaceful elections in 2025. As a reminder, Laurent Gbagbo was removed from the electoral list due to his 20 years prison sentence in Ivory Coast in the Central Bank of West African States robbery case. Pardoned by President Alassane Ouattara, only an amnesty law could allow him to be re-registered on the electoral list.
That was Alvin Ade's report and voiced by Christopher Ticho.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Ghana's parliament resumes today, Tuesday, October 15, with the NDC minority MPs hinting at plans to trigger a process that would cause the New Patriotic Party, NPP, to lose its majority status in the House as 3 MPs from the party filed to contest as independent candidates. One MP from the side of the NDC MPs is also running as an independent candidate. The NDC MPs are seeking to rely on Article 97, 1G of the country's constitution that states that a member of parliament shall vacate his seat if he leaves the party of which he was a member at the time of his election to parliament to join another party or seeks to remain in parliament as an independent member. WDR's Nadia Tete completes the story.
3 MPs, Andrew Isiama Mwako of Fomena, Cynthia Mamle Morrison of Agona East, and Kwejo Asante of Suhum, all elected on the ticket of the NPP, have filed to contest as independent candidates in the 2024 elections. Additionally, Nicholas Amankwa, the NDC MP for Amenfi East, has also switched to contest as an independent candidate. Speaking at a campaign event in the Tamale North constituency, the former minority leader Haruna Idrisu, MP for Tamale South, announced his intention to invoke Article 97 of the 1992 Constitution when Parliament resumes on Tuesday.
And when it reconvenes, I am very certain that Parliament and Ghana will go through a major constitutional test. And that constitutional test is that the NDC minority must become the majority from Wednesday next week.
According to Article 97, Clause 1G of Ghana's 1992 Constitution, a member of parliament must vacate their seat if they leave the party under which they were elected to join another party or remain in parliament as an independent member. Additionally, Clause 1H states that an MP elected as an independent candidate must vacate their seat if they join a political party. In 2020, the governing NPP relied on this provision, requesting then Speaker of Parliament Professor Michael Quay to expel the MP for Fomena after he filed to contest as an independent candidate. Dr. Rashid Rahman, Executive Director of the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs, in reaction, is predicting that the matter could end up in court.
If different people, even lawyers, are giving it different interpretations and faulting the Right Honorable Speaker Okwe for the ruling that he made 4 years ago, we might end up in this case in the Supreme Court.
Ghanaians will be watching closely to see how the events unfold. For WADR, Nadidi Teti, Accra.
Let's head to Mali, where a court has refused to grant a provisional release to economist Etienne Fakaba Sissoko. The Malian economist is being tried on appeal for undermining the credibility of the state following the publication of a book in which he denounces the propaganda of the transitional government. He was sentenced last May to 2 years in prison and ordered to pay damages of 3 million CFA francs to the state. Imprisoned for 7 months, the appeal court on Monday authorizes provisional release under judicial supervision, a decision rejected by the public prosecutor. In Bamako, Ali Cham has the rest of the story and voiced by Etisu.
The victory was short-lived for Etienne Fakaba Sissoko and his defense. While the Bamako Court of Appeal granted him provisional release under judicial supervision pending his new trial, there was a thunderclap in the courtroom, where the public prosecutor finally challenged the court's decision. In the end, the economist will remain in prison. His lawyer, Ibrahim Maruf Sako, denounces judicial harassment against his client.
We were shocked and greatly surprised by the attitude of the prosecution, which can only be described as far from satisfactory. It is an attempt to maintain control in certain institutions. The prosecution should have adopted a much more lenient attitude. To respect this, it is necessary to uphold the presumption of innocence and the principles of fairness, which must be at the forefront.
The hearing on the merits of Etienne Fakaba Sissoko's appeal trial has been set for November 11. Master Sako does not intend to abandon the legal battle until his client is completely acquitted. As a reminder, Etienne Fakaba Sissoko is accused of undermining the credibility of the state following the publication of a book in which he denounces, I quote, the propaganda of the transitional government, end of quote.
That was a report by our Bamako correspondent, Aliu Cham, and voiced by Eche Atisu. Well, still in Mali, the government is suspending with immediate effect the activities of the Temed Association, known for its commitment to the fight against slavery by descent in the country. The Malian Ministry of Territorial Administration justifies its decision with the association's failure to comply with certain administrative procedures. More details with Augustine Cully.
According to the Ministry of Territorial Administration, the Temed Association did not request authorization to carry out these recent activities, adding that without further details on them, this will violate the instructions in force, which strengthen the control of associations and NGOs. Since then, questions have been raised about the real motives of the suspension of the association. Created in 2006, Temed is recognized as a pioneering organization in the fight against descent-based slavery in Mali. The association raises awareness among both victims and communities still practicing these forms of exploitation. It supports victims and has enabled many families to have access to basic social services in areas like Kayes, where the phenomenon is still very much alive. Temed also played an important role in highlighting the reality of descent-based slavery in Mali. Its advocacy efforts have also led to several legal advances, including the opening of trials for slavery cases in 2023. Beyond the suspension of this association, which has recently been critical of the military in power, civil society actors see an attempt to limit its capacity for action. A new attack on freedom of association in the country they denounced. As a reminder, the organization benefits from significant support from numerous foreign partners.
Augustine Coley reporting there. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM Dakar, and our partner stations across the sub-region. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Reactions trail public policy framework launch of Senegal 2050. Laurent Gbagbo's PPACI party insists to get him on the electoral list for the 2025 elections. Ghana's parliament resumes as minority MPs make major constitutional move to become majority MPs. And still ahead in the news, Liberia's President Boakai presents situation of food shortages despite fertile soil to World Food Forum. We do have the press review, a guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Well, don't forget you can listen to us live on wadr.org and follow our live stream on Facebook and YouTube. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has reaffirmed his commitment to stabilizing the country's economy through bold reforms. At the 30th Nigerian Economic Summit in Abuja, the nation's capital, he emphasized that removing fuel subsidies and unifying foreign exchange rates are crucial steps towards achieving macroeconomic stability. Usman Umar in Abuja has more details in this report.
The theme for the 30th Nigeria Economic Summit is Collaborative Actions for Growth, Competitiveness and Stability. The summit provides a platform for key stakeholders to brainstorm on Nigeria's economic challenges with a view to finding solutions. Nigeria's Vice President Kashim Shettima, who represented President Bola Tinubu, reaffirmed that all ongoing reforms are geared towards stabilizing the economy.
The present administration, through the Renewed Hope agenda, has embarked on bold and courageous reforms designed to create an environment that fosters sustainable economic growth and shared prosperity.
Atiku Bagudu is Nigeria's Minister for Budget and National Planning, while Niyi Yusuf is the chairman, Nigeria Economic Summit Group.
The economy is facing the right direction and the decline has been arrested. What has been achieved is a result of boldness, resilience, and collaboration, and thus we need more to compensate for the decades of underinvestment.
Today's challenges demand a new approach centered on collaboration to promote growth, competitiveness, and stability.
Also speaking, Indemit Gill, Senior Vice President and World Bank Group Chief Economist, shared some concerns about Africa's largest economy.
Nigeria, after all, is now the country with the largest number of people living in extreme poverty, not just in Africa, but across the world. But Nigeria's reforms from 2003 to 2007 were exactly what was needed, but they were not sustained. Today's fiscal, monetary, and exchange rate reforms are hurting everyone, especially ordinary Nigerians. The government must do everything in its power to protect the most vulnerable citizens against hardships.
The Nigeria Economic Summit Group is a private sector-led think tank promoting Nigeria's economic growth and development through research, advocacy, and stakeholder engagement. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
Now, despite Liberia's fertile soil and vibrant culture, food shortages remain a serious challenge as President Joseph Boakai reiterates possible means to improving the country's food production at the World Food Forum 2024. Emphasizing Liberia's challenges in food production, it called for concrete actions and urgent and impactful steps that will drive tangible change, noting that this year's World Food Forum presents an opportunity for countries to reflect, deliberate and commit to actions that will help transform national and community agri-food systems. Grace Joshua from Monrovia has the rest of the story.
According to President Boakai, Liberia stands ready to contribute to the global movement for food and security by sharing its vision and experience in building an inclusive, resilient, and transformative agri-system, one that can deliver sustainable food security and nutrition for Liberia now and in the future. The president acknowledged Liberia veteran Ned Kabosank as upping more and proudly containing over 40% of West Africa's remaining rainforest, while stressing that the global population is growing with increasing pressure on food production, climate change, biodiversity loss, and soil denigration that threaten the ability to meet the food needs of growing population.
Mr. Director General, we must prioritize funding for agriculture innovation and sustainable farming practices. By equipping farmers with the right tools, knowledge, and resources, we can increase our crop yield and diversify production, ensuring farmers can feed their families and live themselves out of poverty. Liberia's agriculture sector is vital to the country's economy, accounting for 28.9%.
The president added that now is the movement for robust and unified action as the country emerges from this meeting, not with mere commitment, but with actionable steps that would plant it firmly in the ground as it sowed the seed of hope and resilience. For West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Grace Joshua in Monrovia.
This is the Newspaper Review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country. This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Well, let's bring you the headlines of Senegalese newspapers as we join Christopher Aticho.
Hello and welcome to the review of newspaper headlines here in Senegal. The daily newspapers are returning extensively on Tuesday to the National Development Policy document drawn up by the new government and presented on Monday in Dakar during a meeting chaired by the head of state, President Bassirou Diomaye Faye. Starting with the daily newspaper, Les Echos, which reiterated on its front page the theme for the document as Senegal 2050 National Agenda for Transformation, the new framework for public policies in Senegal, and a rider describing the policy as based on an endogenous, clear, coherent, ambitious, and assumed vision. On the front page of the daily Vox Populi has boldly written headlines: the transformation agenda symbolizes the recovery of the country and the acceleration of its indigenous and sustainable development. At the same time, the newspaper mentions a phenomenon challenge that the new document should help to meet over 25 years, namely supporting nearly 10 million young people looking for their first job. Vox Populi reviews various other proposals contained in the new document relating to economic hubs, opening up agriculture, digital technology, tourism, health, education, and training, among other sectors of the country's economic and social life. For the Daily Info, it has the headline Sustainably Consolidating a United and Resilient Nation, and a rider explaining that the new vision is intended to be the strategic version of PASTEF's project, which led to the election of President Faye, adding that the new framework is based on 4 axes and the establishment of 8 development poles across the country. The Sud Quotidien newspaper quotes the President of the Republic that this new development policy document is to sustainably consolidate a united, resilient nation resolutely anchored in modernity, progress, and well-being. And those are the headline stories from the dailies here in Senegal. I am Christopher Aticho. Back to you in more edits.
Many thanks, Chris, for the review of papers here in Senegal.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Now in this segment, we take you back to our first story on the launch of the Senegal 2050 strategic document. Well, recall, on Monday, President Bassirou Diomaye Faye reeled out the main points of this new framework, which is structured around 4 pillars to include a competitive and job-creating economy, sustainability and regional planning, strengthening human capital and social equity, governance and African commitment. Well, the president also stressed the need to enhance the country's natural resources through local processing and integrating into global value chains while prioritizing the promotion of sustainable management of natural resources. We caught up with Elhaj Amadou Sambu, is the country lead for Budget Senegal, on this development.
This is something that everybody was waiting for, especially the people working on the development, like the civil society organization like us. We was waiting for this. And finally, the government has released a document. We have been invited also as civil society organization to the presentation. So the main talks that we have on this, our first talk is that this plan is in 4 pathways, and the one of Macky Sall was in 3 pathways. But we have seen 2 pathways, meaning the economy, the human capital, but there is also only the sustainability that come here, and the second dimension, which is the governance. And now for these people, they say governance and integration, African integration. Yeah. And this has raised questions in our minds. Personally, we asked the question about how to finance this program, because the finance dimension is important. And yesterday, the Ministry of Finance has taken the floor, but we didn't feel very much things about how this plan will be financed. Where are they going to take the money? knowing that it will be an endogenous plan. So they want to have a sovereignty. So I think the finance dimension needed to be broken down in order to give more context about that. And then about the period, yes, many people are talking about the period 2020. Yes, I think we could have maybe something that was in the short term, in the midterm, in the long term, right? But I think if we consider their model of development, I think this is realistic. And this doesn't mean that we are just going to wait up to 2050, but at least up to 2020 or 2025, we can see the premise maybe for development, because they said that they found a country that is, a country that is damaged. And they want first to restore the country and then move to development. Maybe it can be realistic, but firstly, as an actor, we are more concerned about the way to finance this program.
Do you think the government may be looking at the oil sector as perhaps one means that they may use in financing this project?
The oil sector alone cannot be financed this project. And then also there is another point, which is they want to create an endogenous economy. If we take the sectors that matter in the country, is the primary sector, meaning agriculture, breeding, and fishery, right? Yeah. So when we take this sector, which is the main sector, the most important sector, oil and gas is only a new sector that we are trying to develop, and there is also an agenda for that. So I think that this, as the government said, it is a first draft. So when we say a first draft, it means that it can be improved. As a civil society actors, we will bring our views and our update on that. And I think if all the Senegalese people do the same, we can be able to go to a consolidated document that will be more realistic and more explained, mainly to give the elements like finance, like period, and how are we going to evaluate any steps.
Elijah Madusam is the country director of Budget Senegal. Here's Sport News with Sankle Janko.
Hello all there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Nigerian national football team, the Super Eagles, have safely returned home after their ordeal in a Libyan airport. This comes after the players and officials got stranded for about 13 hours at a Libyan airport ahead of their AFCON qualifier return leg against Libya today, Tuesday. Photos of Nigerian players sleeping on benches went viral early Monday, prompting condemnation across the football world. After hours of nightmare, the team led by Captain Trus Ekong opted not to play the fixture. Media reports say the team landed in Kano for a brief stop and headed to Abuja after Libyan authorities cleared their flight to take off. Meanwhile, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has expressed delight over the safe return of the team back to Nigeria. The Nigerian president expressed his displeasure over the incident, saying he was deeply moved by the inhumane treatment endured by the Super Eagles. President Tinubu has called on the disciplinary board of the Confederation of African Football, CAF, to conduct a thorough investigation and recommend the appropriate sanctions against Libya. And about that, CAF said the matter has been referred to the CAF disciplinary board for investigation and appropriate actions will be taken against those who violated the CAF statutes and regulations. However, Nigeria stands forfeiting 3 points and 3 goals for their action not to play against Libya. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Maudojo for the technical support. I am Imo Edat. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul.